Lyle and Eric Menendez may have another day in court. We talked about this case, I think, late last year after a former Menudo member, Roy Rossellio, came out in a documentary talking about the abuse that he allegedly endured under Jose Menendez, the father of the Menendez brothers, sexually abusing him in the 1980s. Other members of Menudo have also come forward with similar accusations. And so did the brothers. The problem with the brothers having those accusations that never saw the light of day in court on their retrial. And now they're spending the rest of their lives in jail. But it's going to be examined a little bit further. There's a new documentary, or a new docudrama, rather, coming out from the makers of the Dahmer docudrama that's going to be examining this case. Joining me to discuss, Bob Motta, defense attorney, host of the podcast Defense Diaries. Go and press subscribe to that wherever you download podcasts after you're done listening to this. What's your thoughts? A habeas corpus petition has been filed. District attorney reviewing it right now. Decision on the new trial still to come. Where do you think this is going to go with this new evidence? The letters also that have been weighing in on this that never saw the ears of a jury.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if it's going to be legally sufficient to get him a new trial, but it certainly casts the brothers in a different light.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, it casts his father in a much different light, and the mother as well, because the the reality is if mom's aware of what dad's doing
Hmm.
and not doing anything about it,
Yeah.
and it's like I don't know. I just, but it's got to be legally sufficient enough for the court to say, all right, I like this isn't a harmless error. Like this is something that would have changed the trial.
Yeah.
Had this come in, and maybe it would,
Well,
maybe it
isn't that what
would.
is that the whole case was about? Essentially, the brothers wouldn't have done this had they not been sexually and horribly abused for all
Right,
of those years. But that
right.
whole point was never even brought up in court.
I know, and it's like and I like that trial was so far back that I can't remember if there were motions in limine that barred them from bringing it in. You know what I'm
I
saying?
don't know exactly the reason, but I know first round it was brought in, and then we had a hung jury, and then there was the retrial, and then it was not allowed in on the second retrial. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know how horrible the music industry is, and what that was certainly like back then, far more even than what it is today. And you have
Oh
all
yeah,
these members of this band and other people who had worked with him that said the same sort of shit, that this is,
yeah,
it's a predator, and he loved, having kids and kid groups. I mean, look how many times Menudo was reinvented
right,
over the years, and they're all hanging out at this guy's house in swimsuits and all this shit. I mean, it's not a hard story to believe, but
right. No, no
yeah,
question. I mean, I think ultimately it boils down to, I mean, still, isn't that vigilante justice? You know
it
what I'm
is.
saying? I mean, doesn't it kind of boil down to that, really?
I agree, but would this be charged the same way today? Would I mean, and then them be going away for the rest of their lives without the chance of parole, especially with
No,
those pieces not going into the trial itself. I mean, those are
no.
so key. I mean, I could see 10 years, 20. I mean, think of Gypsy Rose. She got
Yeah,
what, 10 years or something.
right.
Yes, it was somewhat vigilante justice, but there was a reason for it. Horrific abuse for so
Yeah.
many years. We have battered spouse syndrome. That too. I mean, that gets taken into consideration. I just, if this thing were tried today, I don't know that we'd see anywhere near the same outcome, or really a
Well,
lot
I
worse
don't think
difference.
that I don't think that they would charge him the same for
Yeah.
certain. Like in this day and age, it's like you said that like that's light years back in time. Like
Hmm.
I mean, we're talking 20, 30, 40 years. When was that? 80s when that case
Yes.
went down?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like we've come a long way, baby, in terms of the way we think
Yeah.
with respect to, especially child abuse.
Yeah.
We've come a long, long way from that. And I think that there's a much greater acknowledgement and understanding that it's something that's pretty prevalent and obviously exceptionally damaging to children.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think they would have charged it differently. like I wouldn't be surprised if the state just comes at them and with an Alford plea type offer says,
Yeah.
"We'll let you out. Just you gotta have to plead guilty. Say that there's enough evidence that we would have, that
Which
we could
they
secure a
yeah.
guilty verdict." Yeah, I mean
Because
maybe that's a good option.
because the argument never has been, did they do it?
Right,
They've said that the Menendez brothers have come out and said, yes, we did this, but this is why we did this.
right.
But the jury was never allowed to hear that. What is the bar, Bob, for them taking a look at this again or getting this back into court? For them to say, yeah, you can come back in. We got the letter that was uncovered detailing the abuse by the father that was written way back. There's the Menudo, some of those boys that have come out and said, what happened to them. What kind of bar needs to be met to get a retrial on something like this?
I mean, essentially, if it's not a so if they came in on a writ, I mean, it's got to be newly discovered evidence that really wasn't available to the attorneys or
Yeah,
at the time that the trial happened. You know, I mean, it's got to
sure.
be truly newly discovered. And I don't know if that'll reach that bar. It might, like
Mhm.
depending on where did they discover these letters? I don't know.
Well, the new evidence emerged. It was a letter from Eric to his cousin with allegations of sexual abuse by Roy Rosilio. This is from the Menudo member. So there was these communications that went back and forth that were never introduced into court, never introduced into evidence. They didn't even know they existed until several years later. I believe a lot of it was uncovered when the Menudo documentary came out last year. That really kind of brought a lot more of this to light. So I
I
mean,
mean,
there,
was that essentially because finally there was like an outcry from like the members of that band who were like, yeah, this dude was an absolute predator, like sexually abusing us.
I
I mean, is
don't
that where
know.
they come?
I don't know the answer. I watched the doc, but it's been about a year now since I watched it.
Yeah.
But I believe it was he wanted to come out and tell his story and wanted to tell the story of the band and really just kind of expose essentially in like a Me Too sort of way. The darkness of what everybody thought was just this, bubblegum pop happy time. And
Yeah.
in doing so, ended up connecting the dots with the Menendez brothers. I believe, if I remember correctly, he didn't even connect those dots at the time. But then it all just kind of started to come to light of, oh God, well, they never even got that part of their story heard in court. And that is the crux of the whole case.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, clearly I'm sympathetic.
Sure.
And obviously, I mean, it corroborates their story, right? I
Hmm.
mean, that's the part that matters. So I think that anybody that, has a conscience would realize whatever time they've served at this point is probably ample.
Yeah.
So whatever the case may be, if I'm the state's attorney in that case, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, all right, you know what? Are we gonna spend a bunch of taxpayer money forcing another trial on this where we're gonna allow this evidence to come in? Or do we just want to look at it and say, all right, we're gonna offer like an Alford plea, let these guys out. We'll still have the conviction. And if I'm them, I'm taking it.
Sure.
This isn't like a West Memphis 3 situation where they denied committing the crime,
Hmm.
and they're out, and then they have problems now because they took the Alpha plea to get out.
Hmm.
Now they're not in prison anymore. I'm talking about the
Yeah.
West Memphis 3 guys, but now they've taken an Alford plea where
Hmm.
they've admitted guilt, and it creates an issue for the Menendez brothers. Like at this point, they just want to get out.
Yeah.
It's like they'll. Ugh, I imagine like financially that the minute they get out, they'll probably make a pretty penny with some documentaries that come right down the pike. So they
Sure.
could probably get on their feet pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And we can consider it to be, if you're not in favor of vigilante justice, and it's like it's a slippery slope. It's like I'm always like, if somebody ever came after my kids or abused my kids, like it's hard to say what I would do.
Oh, me too.
You know what I mean?
I
So
think it'd
it's
be a
like
topic of one of these shows. Someone else will be
yeah,
hosting at that
exactly.
point.
As a father,
Yeah.
like I get it. I get the concept. And if you're a child that's got the ability to be able to stop this horrific abuse, not just of yourself, but
Mhm.
of others, I mean,
Yeah.
really putting a stop to a monster.
Yeah.
Um, You know, I mean, there's sympathy there. Like, I think that there's going to be people that are like, they've served more than enough time
Yeah.
in light of the person or the people that they killed.
And it was really money and power that protected their father from ever being found out at that
100%.
point in time, along
That's
with
what,
the
that's what it always boils down to,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Follow the money, man. Follow the money.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating to see, where this goes because I think a lot of good could come of them getting out, and
Yeah.
just, I mean, raise more awareness for this fact that these sort of things happen, and
Yeah.
there's so much of it that gets swept under the rug, and it's right under our noses
Yep.
the whole damn time.
Yeah, let me put it this way. In terms of really old cases, I think there's a much higher likelihood the Menendez brothers are walking out of prison rather than Scott Peterson.
Yes, that's another one. Yeah, that is another one. But that has been fascinating to watch, and see. It's one of those two where, like, let's just play with everything on the table, and
Yep.
that's why it's so important that all that does get on the table the first time. So we're not sitting here 20, 30 years later going, well, maybe just to be fair, we should do this.
Right.
But very different circumstances with the
Yep.
Menendez brothers.
100%. Very, very different circumstances. Like one, you can see why they should come out. The other one, you got to really be sold on it.
Yeah,
And there's just like his story, Peterson's story is almost as difficult to stomach and believe as the first case that we talked about,
sure.
Shaver.
Yeah,
It's a tough pill to swallow
it is.
both ways. So
Yeah. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.